Hello and welcome to this week's Property Matters, the show that brings global trends to an Irish audience to help shape your knowledge of the industry. You can contact us on Twitter at iPropertyRadio or by email at hello@iPropertyRadio.com. The hosts today are Brian Fox, myself and Talon.
Thank you, Brian. Okay, just a quick roundup of the week. It's been confirmed that the Housing Department will not meet its targets under Rebuilding Ireland for the third consecutive year. Interestingly, the Irish Independent reports today that women and retirees are now being targeted for heavy plant machinery construction jobs as the global labour crisis bites. And also, which might be of interest to developers and contractors out there, NAMA looks set to partner with developers to build homes in Poolbeg, the 15-acre site in Poolbeg West in Dublin. So the agency will begin looking for partners to develop this controversial site within the next 6 to 8 weeks. And it's just important to note there that An Bord Pleanála has already approved plans for the land involving offices, shops, schools, amenities and supports for up to 3,500 new homes. And we might get into this later on in the show, but the breaking news here is that Dublin City Council shoots down Johnny Ronan's bid to increase the height of Docklands development after a stint in the High Court earlier or late last week. So we might return to that, but in the meantime, Brian, you might tell us what was going on in the Dáil.
Thanks, Carol. Yeah, interesting week. There was only 2 topics actually that was debated or discussed in the Dáil as such. Now this one is rather intricate. It's to do with the so-called vulture funds, and Deputy Michael Harty of the Rural Independent Group had a private members motion calling on stricter regulations for what they call the vulture funds before the Dáil on last Thursday. Now, in a speech to the Dáil, he was roundly critical of the funds, which are typically pension funds or investment funds. He was also very critical of Fine Gael in that, and I quote this, "The programme for a partnership government commits to providing protection for distressed mortgage holders and borrowers. Tenants and small to medium enterprises whose loans have been sold or transferred to non-regulated entities, which effectively are vulture funds," and that's the end of quote. He also went on to say that the Fine Gael government has not lived up to this commitment on this. Deputy Thomas Pringle also chimed in. He said the Central Bank of Ireland's report on the effectiveness of the Code of Conduct on mortgage arrears in the context of the sale of loans by regulated lenders, which was actually sent to the Minister for Finance in February of 2018, should be given legislative force to ensure that all parts of the Code are expressly admissible in repossession hearings. One has to wonder, he said, why this has not been done already. It must surely be to give the banks the leeway to do what they're doing. And then Pascal Donoghue was also there as well, and in a long contribution to the debate, he said that the Land and Conveyancing Law Reform Act of 2018 is being reviewed at the moment, and the Code of Conduct on mortgage arrears have all contributed to a significant amount of mortgage restructuring to alleviate our citizens from difficulty. He concluded by saying that he'll continue to work with those who want to be constructive on this and to see if there are ways in which we can continue to get the balance right. Those who are in difficulty need to be and must be treated fairly. Now, Michael McGrath, the Fianna Fáil finance spokesperson, raised a very good point in that the banks will come before these houses in the form of the Joint Committee on Finance, Public Expenditure and Reform and Taoiseach, and they will allow themselves to be held to account. They reply to their very detailed questionnaires and send them in advance of their appearance before the committee. Then they come in and maybe a 4 or 5 or 6 engagement with members of the committee. They will answer the questions to a greater or lesser extent, but there is no such cooperation from the investment funds. And finally on this story, the major problem seems to stem from the fact that the European Central Bank wants to cut the number of non-performing loans. But due to a definition of a non-performing loans that aren't in good shape are being sold off as well as good ones. So it's a difficult one. And just finally, an act to make provision for ease of access to a housing adaptation grant for people with disability for those applicants qualifying for the same and to provide for related matters was debated. Essentially to allow for 71 million euros to be spent on housing modification for people with disability and cuts out a lot of red tape for those applying for it. It'll be up for discussion with the committee and come back before the Dáil shortly.
Okay, thank you, Brian. You saved the reputation of our politicians with that final story there, because that's something we've been waiting for and very welcome. And I think homeowners who have been looking, and in fact tenants who've been looking for this grant, that's a very positive thing. So we'll actually let that fighting over the language of investment funds and cuckoo funds and vulture funds, we'll let that slide because they've had a late win with the amendments to the
Oh,
home.
the recent
so let that slide. Now, in studio today, I'm delighted to be joined by Eddie O'Driscoll and Helen O'Keefe, directors of Auctioneera.
That's it.
An online estate agency. So you're both very welcome. I'm delighted that you're both here today, because this is something that I'm so interested in, and the commentary has been so mixed that I'm interested to hear what's actually going on the ground.
Yeah.
So look, Helen, we'll start with you. You might just tell us a little bit about Auctioneera.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you for having us today, Carol. We're delighted to be here. So, Carol, Auctioneera is a fixed price estate agency. We're fully licensed and regulated by the PSRA. So the only difference really, I suppose, with us in comparison to a traditional estate agent is the price of €1,299 plus VAT. And I think our USP is our price, but we provide everything that you need to sell your property that another agent would provide.
And let me just jump in there, because you introduced us as an online estate agent, and I think that's a little bit of a misnomer, in that I guess every estate agent uses the internet as a tool to sell their properties, but
very good, yeah.
We're very much a hybrid, or we use the internet, but our agents still go out to meet you. We still do viewings, so we're not in the style of, we'll say, a doorsteps in the UK, where literally they're just taking your photographs, putting them on Daft in My Home. So online estate agency, I would take a little bit of an issue with, and that the only difference between ourselves and a regular traditional estate agent is that the price, as Helen alluded to there. So we use the internet, but we're not exclusively online. We do everything else.
So it's really a fixed price service.
Yeah,
fixed price.
exactly.
I mean, that is the main thing. Is fixed price. It's not typically, as you're aware, if you're selling your property with I don't know the correct term, a traditional agent call it, you're typically being charged maybe 1%, 1.5%. So if you're selling property for €350,000, you're spending maybe €5,000 plus marketing fees and so forth, which I suppose and I think we'll be talking about proptech later on, when we really drill down into the cost of efficiently providing that service and go through all of the steps from photography, the initial on-site visit, the valuation, the viewings, the DAF, the My Home listing, etc. We felt that by leveraging some of our maybe tech knowledge and so forth, and efficiencies and process optimization, that we could squeeze that price right down. And we use technology and we use the internet to do it, but there are some parts of the process that you just can't put online. So we still have to send an agent out to meet every one of our vendors, obviously.
So there's still a personal touch, not
absolutely.
Yeah,
you have to, and at the initial meeting with our agents, one of the things that we're at pains point, hand the business card over. In other words, if someone wants to send their agent a text or give them a call, that's absolutely fine. We'd encourage that if you want to check what's going on. So as I say, we leverage technology, but it's not what
I think, I suppose, one of the fundamentals of how we started Auctioneera, or why we started it, was that we wanted to bring an injection of transparency, but also fairer price. So we bring transparency because we can show people the offers online. Now,
are you using an online bidding platform, or have you got your own?
We built one from scratch, and that's important. So in other words, we started with a blank. So we'd have developers, and we'd have, in past life, we were part of a digital marketing firm. So we'd work with developers. And
can I just interrupt to ask, actually, what is your past? How did you come into this?
Yeah, so we
digital marketing.
Had a digital marketing, and I suppose as part of that, we worked with SMEs and larger companies to with developers all of the time, and constantly looking at the most efficient way to get things done. So it was in that context then that we looked at, I suppose, a lot of what we perceived to be inefficiencies. So for example, the obvious one that we're always known for is the online bidding. So you ask us, did we rent the platform? We would build that. Like that wouldn't even occur to us to go out and look for someone else's platform. So we would have decent developers, we would get onto them. We would.
So do you have that operational at the moment?
Yeah, in-house. Yeah, exactly. So Auctioneera is I'm not going to call it an online bidding platform, but you can go onto our website and you can place offers. So you can go onto auctioneera.ie, you can click properties for sale, you can see the asking price, you can see the current highest offer of every property. We just can't see why that would be a secret, why that wouldn't be online. And we just when we looked at it, and we personal experience of buying and selling property, the concept that I had to call up the agent and say, what's the offer, and then he'd say it's this, and I'd say, okay, I'll do that plus 1,000, and then I'd be left sitting around, and then he may or may not call me back, and then he'd call me back and say it's gone to this plus 2,000, and I just said, this cannot be the right way to do it. I mean, that just strikes you as insanity in our view of the world. So we said, put it all online. And I mean, we do have people saying to us, God, you have some properties on there that have no offers. Are you not, embarrassed at that? Are you? Absolutely not. Loads of agents have properties that don't. We put it all up there. Everybody can see.
And at the end of the day, with Property Price Register, the sold price is going to be on there anyway. So this thing of hiding things away, it's totally irrelevant.
Actually, that's a really interesting one you're saying, because actually I've heard traditional estate agents use that excuse for not using online bidding platforms, because so frequently I'm told we're waiting for the right property to do this, because the very same thing, they're afraid to put on properties that won't have immediate bids, and then it will
feel it undermines them. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, not just undermines them professionally, but it undermines the property.
Or is there not fear among Irish?
No, I mean, look, we've looked
Irish.
at no, but I mean, we looked at a lot of the international markets when we were starting up Auctioneera, and I suppose the obvious market that you'd go straight to is the UK. Yeah. So I mean, the UK has similarly, it's all private treaty sales, and it was all done through the agent's mobile phone, and the agent had all of the power. And then I suppose the likes of Purple Bricks, who founded by Northern Irish, two Northern Irish gentlemen, but they came along and they came in with fixed fee, and then you've had a number of competitors come in on top of them. I mean, they're still a little bit cagey about the online side of things, but we just don't see, like, what's the secret? In other words, we've nothing to hide.
There's still a suspicion. There's still a bit of scepticism out there about
there is a huge amount of scepticism, and I suppose from a buyer's point of view, we just found, me personally being a buyer, I hated getting the call from the agent who had not a vested interest, an explicit interest in the price going higher. So just put yourself in my shoes as a buyer. I'm bidding, let's hypothetically say, €300,000 on a property, and I know the guy calling me back is on a commission of the final price, and he says it's gone to 305, would you put in 310 and you might get it? And I'm thinking, is there a 305 here, Whereas at least with Auctioneera, we don't have that perverse incentive, so we let the market basically competitive bidding. So we ensure
we're independent referees.
Independent referees of a competitive and transparent bidding process.
How did you two get together? Because you're director and office manager, and you're director of Auctioneers.
So we both Helen. Work together in our digital marketing company. So that's
so our background is digital marketing. So we've always worked in that area. Yeah. So then we had our other director, Glenn Henley, who brought the estate agency experience. So they fuse together to form Auctioneera.
That's one thing we saw in the early emergence of proptech or property technology. Most of the change that's happened in the last 3-4 years in property, using technology or not, has all been buyer led, or consumer led, and so usually that came from people who had a really frustrating experience of trying to buy or sell or rent or lease or refurbish or whatever they were doing, and that led to the business opportunity. So it certainly sounds like you had that experience when you were buying.
Yeah, I mean, I just didn't like being put in that position. But also if you put your business hat on for a second, it's just obscenely inefficient. In other words, let's suppose there's 7 people, because people ask us, how do you make money at those prices? You can't make money and so forth. But we couldn't make money if there was 7 underbidders and then an 8th guy came into the bidding, and we had to call back the 7 underbidders and then tell them all of the situation, and then one of them goes up another little bit, and we call all the other 7 guys. So it's just, not only is it disconcerting from a buyer's point of view, but just from a pure business process optimization point of view, put it online. So in other words, if there's 7 people bidding on a property on our website, and an 8th guy comes in, he makes an offer, all the 7 immediately get an email saying, hi guys, there's a new offer on the property. Everybody can go on and see it. And then what we do, one of the other initiatives that we introduced was that we found when we listed a property, let's say we listed at 350 hypothetically, initially always the first offer was tended to be kind of a low ball offer, because there's no incentive really to offer the asking straight off the bat. Why would you try and look, I'll chance my arm here at 300, and then it goes back and forth. So we introduced, and the thing about private treaty is it's very ill-defined in terms of when does it start and when does it end. So you can make an offer with an agent and say, look, I'll give you the 305 that you're looking for, and they said, no problem, I'll get back to you. So he may or may not get back to you. So what we said is, look, we need to bring some clarification as to when this process starts and ends. So we introduced the deadline for offers. So basically, if someone makes an offer of the asking price, so if you went to our website at the moment, www.auctioneera.ie, go to properties for sale, you will see that there's properties on there that have deadlines on them, so they're closing tomorrow. So it feels like an online auction. They're private treaty sales, but it feels like an online auction. But
is that the equivalent though of going to best and final offers?
Yeah.
And buyers hate those.
Yeah, but the thing
They hate
but the thing needs to be wrapped up though. The thing needs to be wrapped up
at some point. It does give them clarity. It gives them an end point. And we get a lot of first-time buyers ring up and they've made their offer and they have no clarity. But this allows them clarity.
And just
There's
to
an end
explain
point
exactly
to
how it works. So let's suppose you make an offer of the asking. So what we'll do is we'll put a 15-day deadline on the property at that time. So you literally see it ticking down on our website. So during that time, then we're unashamedly, because we do represent the vendor and we are there to get the market price for the vendor, best price for the vendor. But you'll see the timer start to tick down, and inevitably then what we found. So let's say the deadline is 8 p.m. tomorrow. So what happens a lot of the time is that people will wait until 2 minutes to 8 p.m. and they'll nip in with another €1,000.
Now, how reliable? Your technology would want to be pretty reliable for. I visions of eBay sniping.
Yeah, so great point, and I'll admit it that our first few closes could have been a bit, but we really have very good developers. So the way it works is that you talk about eBay sniping. So basically, what happens is you put in the offer if you put in an offer within 2 minutes of the deadline, we automatically add another 2 minutes. So there's no way that you could pull the rug from underneath someone.
So there's been deadlines that go to even 20 minutes past the hour.
So it's not set in stone, in other words.
Well, not
the 2 minute.
We wait for a 2-minute period to elapse during which there's no offer, and then we'll close it out. So the great thing about everybody can see what's happening. Right. There's no secrets. You're putting in your offers, and if somebody goes above you, you can say, okay, look, I'm walking away at this stage, or you can say, look, I'm going to go again. But from everybody's point of view, if you see a property listed at 350, if you offer the 350, you will know in 2 weeks' time whether or not that's accepted or not.
Very good.
Whereas currently, your private treaty can go on and on and on.
Do you have an option to bring that shorter? So, for example,
if I was
advising a buyer and they were going to offer the asking price, where's the incentive for them to do that unless the property was going to be taken off the table that day?
Yeah, so that day. So that's a really good point. So we've had to evolve the service as we went. So initially we were a little bit naive. So we said, the 15 days and everybody. So the beauty of the 15 days from the vendor's point of view is he's got the asking in the bag, so to speak, and he can kind of relax, and everything else is a bonus. And he's hoping, we'd one close last night in Holywell and Swords, so we were going into the close, and it can be very dramatic to watch them. You can tune in and watch them. So but it was going into the close at the asking 305, and the vendor was happy. The vendor was getting their asking, end up at 325. She's delighted. So today then we're booking.
How did it go up 20,000?
Just frenetic bidding.
How many needs two people to have a bidding war?
Went hammer and tongs at it.
No, hold on now. Seriously, two bidders went up by collectively 20,000 over the course of what space of time?
10 minutes, I'd say.
On a 300 grand house.
Yeah.
See, this is what's wrong with buyers. Genuinely, it's like buyers don't realise that we're at the top of the cycle and things.
But hold on, in that they looked at that property, and that property was worth 325 to them, and presumably if the next fellow went, who knows, the next guy went to 326. But that's the market, that is the definition of it. It's two guys objectively having attended multiple viewings, because they come out a few times. So we're not an online estate agent. They come out, they have a look around, we show them around, we answer all of their questions. They're informed buyers. They're coming out to have a look around. They're looking at all of three market forces.
Yeah.
So all we are doing is facilitating the market to play out, and it's open. It's free market economics.
And to be honest, I accept that actually is the fairest way to do it.
Totally.
See, the problem is at the moment we've got buyers who they don't understand free market value, and in fact what they understand is what their mortgage limit is, and they're afraid that so they use their limit like a target, and they don't necessarily respect market value. They bid to the max they can because they're so desperate to get a home.
Well,
and that's not your fault.
That's fair.
That's
okay,
buyer's
so they're in other words
behaviour.
invalid bids then? Is
No, they're perfectly valid bids, but as in, I suppose, is it wise bidding? That's a different question.
Well, I'll put it
Or
this
did
way:
you even
these
decide
guys,
to
we had a few other similar
afterwards?
properties in Swords, so they were looking at all of the properties that we have, and they made the decision. So this one was really nice inside, and so on. So they wanted that property. They bid that amount. Presumably, they're happy with because they wouldn't have bid it if they weren't.
Oh no!
So that's the definition of a viable transaction. You know, a willing buyer, a willing vendor. There's an overlap in the highest price that the bidder is willing to pay and the vendor is willing to accept, and a transaction happens, and we're just facilitating that and saving the vendor in that particular instance in the region of about four and a bit thousand euros.
Now, actually, for me, I can absolutely see the benefits for the seller in terms of the price. I can see the benefits from in terms of the buyer. Now, we've a strong proptech proponent here, so we've looked at a lot of different online bidding platforms. We understand that this is the way buyers and sellers want to buy and sell property now, so I absolutely get that. So now I have to step into the shoes of a potential estate agent who might be listening here saying, how can you make a sustainable living charging €1,299 plus VAT?
Yeah, so and that's why it's great. This is a PropTech show. So in other words, basically what we did if you look at the process from when we get the initial inquiry through our website or phone call through to the office to when we hand over the keys to the buyer at the end of the conveyance, we literally looked at every constituent part of the process, everything, and we looked at where can it be optimized. So the obvious one was, look, we're not going to call back 700 bidders. We're going to say, look, you'll get an email, go online. So that obviously we took that cost out straight. So if we had to do that, so you take that cost out, but we took out a hell of I made just a list of all of the optimizations that we made. So another one is, so
tell us so we can educate the rest of the market looking to become hybrid agents.
Exactly. So I'll give you, so like, we would think nothing of spending 100 hours of development time to save 10 minutes in the process, because it's 10 minutes times how many properties we sell. So I'll give you the level of detail that we would go to. So for example, obviously we're photographing a lot of properties. We've really great property photographers. That's really important. The professional that's all they do is photograph properties for us. So they go out, they'll take the photographs. We're really proud of our photographs. A guy called Neil William goes out, takes all our photographs. Brilliant guy, all over Dublin, and they're just really, because we think that's really important. But
I was actually on your website, and that was something I remarked on.
The photographs are great. We're really, and in Cork as well, we've got a really great guy.
You're Cork based, are you?
Well, I personally am, but our agents are in Dublin and in Cork, and so we're really focusing on those two markets.
Eventually.
That's what we like to hear, Helen.
Eventually, but we're focusing on those two major markets. But just in terms of the optimization, so what we were doing, and this might seem like a small thing to most people, is that the photographs were being, as is normal, being uploaded to Dropbox. Then we were downloading from Dropbox and then uploading them to our website and ultimately onto Daft and My Home. So basically, if you think about it, there was 3 steps there: uploading to Dropbox, downloading from Dropbox, back up to our website. So basically, we created a little portal for our photographers. They put them straight up onto the website. Where there was 3 steps, there's now 1, and we've just taken them. They don't go straight onto the website. We have to approve them, but we've taken that ethos throughout the whole process. So for example, I'll give you 1 or 2 further examples. When our agents go out and meet the vendors, if the vendor, if they're lucky enough to choose us, that they actually want to sell their property with us, we need to send them, as every agent does, a letter of engagement, and those were a bloody nuisance for us. The agents would have to copy the old one. It's just a contract, it's a boilerplate, but on each one we'd have to change the address, change the name, change the AMV, the advised market value.
So
the agents were saying, God, we've lots of vendors, but I've got these bloody... So basically built a little module individual wrote a small bit of code that the agent can put in just the AMV, because we know everything about the property already. Click generate letter of engagement, send. So we send through DocuSign. That we don't own that proprietarily, but again, we're not popping it in the post and sending it out and then they're posting it back. So the vendors
no, look, I think this is amazing. Like, we work through the process of digital transformation with estate agents, and so many estate agents don't understand the value of spending 100 hours development time so you can save 10 minutes on every property. And
if you take that just rigour and attention to detail throughout and it's a finite process from the start to the finish, and if you take that, then you can, but it's not easy. And so, like, we have spent thousands of hours of development time. It is not easy to get to a point like that. Price wasn't picked out of the air, so we've got our photography, we've got our viewings, we've got our DAF subscription, our My Home subscription. So, but if we apply that rigour throughout the whole, and here's another point, there are some things that you can't improve with technology. So, for example, Glenn Henley, our agent, he is a people person. He goes out, he meets the guys, he has a chat about the football. And we're not at all looking. One of the questions that we got asked is, are we looking to take the magic out of auctioneering or estate agents? Not at all. Our agents have great chats with the vendors.
People will still want to go out and go to viewings.
So
like,
one example was
things about AR.
We saw an agent, and look, we saw an agent who put, and this is where we think you can't have technology for technology's sake. We need to basically say, if we're enhancing the experience for the buyer, the seller, we will use technology. So one quick example before I finish up is we saw an agent who basically put a load of Oculus Rifts inside in his office, and he said, you can come to our office. The Oculus is the 3D VR experience, and you can do a VR of all the properties. A viewing. But our buyers would say, I'd rather actually go there. So in that instance, we have to go there. We have to open. So no, it's not technology for technology. So we don't think. So we look at Oculus and we say, okay, that's technology. It's great if you're a gamer, but our buyers want to go. They want to open the front door. They want to walk out the back garden. They want to have a look around. And there's no amount of technology can get rid of that.
You had me up until that. I can tell you now straight away. We've actually surveyed buyers, and we've no vested interest in this. Buyers absolutely want to be able to do virtual tours of properties before they view it. So I don't think it's an either or situation. When you're doing so well on the technology, don't stop there.
But I mean, look, we can do 3D tours, but nobody's going to spend 350,000 on a property or any amount without actually going out and seeing it. So,
look, one thing really comes to mind here. I love what you guys are doing. I genuinely cannot see how it is sustainable at that level, but I hope it is. I genuinely hope it is, because we want technology.
It's damn hard. I mean, we've worked damn hard every day, and it's tough. But
I fully accept that. But I wonder, is this coming from the fact that you two are not traditional estate agents? Is that the magic?
Well, I mean, and I'm
looking
told
at it objectively.
Because you were able to come in. You weren't attached. You weren't attached to any processes.
Michael O'Leary said the best thing that he had when he was founding Ryanair is he had no background in the airline industry, so he looked at everything with a fresh eye. Now I need to hammer home we are not the Ryanair. We've great we love our customers, but I'm joined a small analogy. We have great customer service. We love our customers.
Can I just say there are worse things to be compared to than Ryanair?
I don't know, at the moment there's a lot of people shorting the stock and so forth.
Honestly, I could talk about this all day. Unfortunately, we don't have time, but thank you so much for coming up today and coming in to talk. And by the way, we are definitely going to get in and talk about this, because quite frankly, I want to see in 3 months' time that you're still committed to that 1299 and see how that's working. And maybe we'll drill down a little bit on the business model and look for even more ways to see if we can optimise with technology, because that's exactly what needs to happen. So, Eddie,
we can't up the prices now, unfortunately. We're on record.
You're committed here. Okay, Eddie O'Driscoll and Helen O'Keefe of Auctioneera, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much.
Everything's fine on 93.9 Dublin South FM.
And welcome back to Property Matters here on Dublin South FM with myself, Brian Fox, and Carol Tolan. You can contact us on Twitter at iPropertyRadio or email hello@iPropertyRadio.com. Now in studio with Paul O'Connor. Paul is Business and Partner Development Director of ACASM. Have I pronounced that correctly, Paul?
ACASM.
ACASM.
It's an acronym for a much longer name for the business, which is Automated Critical Asset and Service Management.
Now, just elaborate on that, because I have looked at your website and I found it very interesting from the point of view of. I think you used the word gadgets, do you, on the website?
Yeah, I mean, the website needs a lot of work. I spent most of my time trying to develop business and meet and greet rather than developing the website. The business is really focused on looking at data analytics within the commercial property sector to inform building performance, and that is lighting and heating.
Okay.
But also in terms of maintenance management and moving from what is very much traditional PPM model, which is a preventative maintenance model, across into a predictive maintenance model, and what they're now calling prescriptive maintenance. So there's all that aspect. So data analytics really is where we're at.
So you would get your information then, or harvest the information as the word is from what?
So the European from the building management system,
right.
That's currently in place, whether that be commercial, office block, hotels, dental nursing homes.
Right.
But the European Commission, the European Commission did a study, and they showed that 90% of buildings, building management systems, are not fit for purpose.
Okay. What percentage?
90%. Of current building stock, building management systems are not fit for purpose, are not used properly.
That's not just old stock, as in that's anything.
It's anything that has a building management system in place, any building that has a building management system in place. So, and the reasons for that are that buildings change usage, the occupancy changes, the personnel change, i.e. maintenance management teams change, buildings are not, or BMS systems are not commissioned properly. Very, very different reasons. I mean, in one particular case, I was talking to a client or a potential client, they didn't know where it was. So if they don't know where it is, how can you manage it?
Sorry, I don't understand. You were speaking to a building manager?
A building owner.
A building owner? And
in a particular building, they didn't know where the building management system was. In another case...
How is that possible?
Well, that's a very good question. I don't know the answer to that, but they didn't know where it was. In another case, they switched the building management system off. So
there's a lot of ignorance then in relation to this whole idea of building management.
I think it's a couple of things there. I think it's because there's a lot of ignorance in there, because again, when a building management system is commissioned and those management teams or maintenance management teams are responsible for it and they move on, they take all that knowledge with them.
Okay.
Also, I think because building management systems are very much proprietary and also designed for engineers and not generally for... So if you take a hotel manager, he hasn't done an engineering qualification. He hasn't got a degree in engineering at all, or data analytics for that matter, but engineering. And he is responsible for making sure that the coffee is warm. He deals with the customer guest complaints, but also has to try and manage the building management system.
Paul, is part of the problem here that people don't seem to understand the cost, the consequences, the financial consequences of turning off your building information system, or is it a case that people are not equating the money that's being spent with money that's actually being wasted?
Yeah, I think so. I think that there's it goes back to certainly design stage within a building where the control element to a building is an afterthought. And where when you're speccing a building from design stage, when you get to that construction phase, an awful lot of the good stuff is stripped out because of budgets. So you look at a building. If you look at a building from an OPEX and a CAPEX perspective, arguably you should be looking at the control element of OPEX within the building, and that is dealt with, could be dealt with separately. I mean, it is about budgeting.
Right, but is part of the problem with your design and build teams? Are they perhaps not as are they too disjointed to see this work?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that
where's the fall down?
Certainly in where proptech is concerned and the current environment around data analytics, there needs to be a much more holistic point of view taken. There's an awful lot of siloed thinking, and the systems within the building are very much siloed, so nothing really integrates. Where now, with the way IoT works, Internet of Things and data analytics, you can integrate systems an awful lot easier, and you can take that approach right from the start, and it allows you to manage the life cycle of the building an awful lot better, right from design through to construction into management.
And But that's something that I know certainly when I'm dealing with engineering firms, that's something they're telling me. The whole building life cycle assessment is so important that, in fact, this is something that's used to win tenders.
Yeah, but they're still designing control systems the way they always used to design them and install them, where they're very proprietary. So when you take a building from day one and you look at it in 10 years' time, it's changed usage. Mm-hmm. The occupancy, as we know from all the WeWorks of this world, buildings usage has changed dramatically. Mm-hmm. And then you're looking at how you can manage floor space. So a system like an IoT solution where you can layer in devices and sensors as you need them, as the building changes usage and shape and occupancy, and then when that building in due course needs a refurb, you can strip all those sensors out and then redeploy them as you need them, whereas current building management solutions and building automation solutions don't allow for that because they're very much proprietary.
So does that mean you're in a situation where you're actually the last time you and I spoke about your services, we were talking about retrofitting older buildings, and by older I meant anything above 7 to 10 years.
Well, that's what we're currently providing, is that retrofit solutions, where we will bolt onto a building management system. We will upgrade to, which is the common protocol now, the common language is BACnet, and then we will pull all that data into the cloud and allow the algorithms that are out of the box solutions for the most part perform those analytics, which allow you to optimise your HVAC better, or allow you improve the comfort and health and well-being of the occupant in the building, but also allow you to move across into that predictive maintenance management, where you can start to look at reversing out of contracts or deploying all your resources based on if you have a portfolio or not, but deploying resources according to where you need them most or what's most critical.
Okay, actually, can we break that down a little bit for people maybe who aren't familiar with, because you started by saying that, this is essentially using data analytics to measure a building's performance, but it goes so much further than measuring, because you're giving information and data that is actionable, and this is where we fall into the category of maintenance no longer being planned but rather predicted.
Yeah.
So can you just explain the technology around that?
So current building management system, if this is the right answer to the question, will just give you an alert to tell you something has failed. So it's very reactive. So it's broken, we'll go and fix it. So when you start to move into gathering data, so you're sending all your data from the endpoints in the building, whether that be temperature, humidity, pressure, whatever those metrics are, and you're starting to stream that data to the cloud, you're starting to see trends, and trends across time.
And this is what you're picking up?
Yeah.
Your trends, okay. Good.
So it doesn't matter what the device is that picks up that data, it's about the data. Right. So you stream that, and you need to, it takes a while so to move across from that traditional approach into condition monitoring, which you're starting to see the condition of the equipment. Yeah, you're starting to see trends on the condition of the equipment, and then you're on those trends. You're able to then set baselines, and then from there you're able to start to predict failure on equipment.
So how long does that take?
That's a very good question.
Yeah, no, it's something that, because look, we're at relatively early stages with a lot of this technology, and certainly the sensors that you're deploying, it's something that I've found fascinating, a couple of years ago when we first spoke about this. And so what I'm really interested to see is the pace of machine learning, artificial intelligence, is that ramping up?
Go back to the question, how long does it take? I think really is about starting where the pain points are, because you need to start to collect that data. I don't know how long it'll take, because that's getting into the big data space, and that can take a while. If you've got a portfolio of buildings, it'll certainly take a lot less time than it will if you're just managing one building, because the amount of data you're gathering is a lot larger, and then you can start to benchmark across your portfolio. So
what kind of clients are you working with at the moment?
Good question. Another good question.
That's very good.
I'm on a roll.
We have just actually last Friday got got a verbal agreement on our first contract.
Well done.
So since we started speaking, which is could be going on 2 years, maybe 2.5 years.
There's a lot of research involved in that, and I'm so aware of it, and that's why I'm delighted to see actually that you're at first contract stage.
And I've had verbal agreements in the past, but this looks quite solid. And that will happen with a large FM company.
Okay.
I'd rather not divulge the name of the company yet, but
Can I just put it to you? Could I ask you, Paul? Because I'm aware of what you're speaking about, okay? But I have been sort of more aware, I suppose, of how this sort of information is used in the political arena. In that a political party will hire you yourself. How would you? And the information then is broken down into areas, into who votes what. But how do you apply that to your particular model?
So we will tag each sensor, so we will know where it is, what it is, and what it's doing.
Okay. Yeah.
So the data that comes in will know where it's from. So if you've got a sensor in a HVAC, a motor, for argument's sake, in a HVAC piece of equipment in New York, for argument's sake, we as a sort of a virtual FM company, we could tell you where the motor is, what part of the motor is failing, and that can almost in time send an alert to the technician that has the credentials to fix that piece of equipment.
See, there's where I'm at a loss, because I thought that was all done. I assumed
not yet,
that a light comes up and the mechanic knows straight away up to there, and it's number.
But I think the problem is
when
when the light comes up, it's that something has already gone wrong. So what Paul's
prevention,
predictive and prescriptive.
Yeah, and that sort of that lighting on a board within a building is red or green or whatever colour.
That's
orange.
very reactive.
But it requires somebody to actually see that.
Yes, sure.
So to be there present in front of it and say, it's gone red.
Right.
Whereas we can do that remotely.
Right.
From the cloud.
But is the value in doing that before it turns red?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Because you look at before anybody notices that the temperature has changed, the piece of equipment has failed. One of the interesting areas is around food spoilage. So that temperature monitoring. But before the temperature starts to decrease, the motor has failed already. An hour ago.
And you've kicked in basically.
Yeah, so we'd be able to tell you weeks in advance.
Right.
If not
so it's
days.
a big advantage to any building owners or engineers.
Well, say for example, I remember somebody working in a large food processing plant, and if the refrigeration unit went down, the refrigeration unit was obviously the size of, maybe 1/3 the size of Dundrum town centre here, that essentially it could take more than 24 hours to get it back up and running. So I presume the value is no downtime. If you know in advance, you've no downtime.
Absolutely, and the implications, moving from certainly in terms of industrial and manufacturing end of it, are in the millions. So they've got very, very sophisticated equipment that'll tell them months in advance that a bearing within a motor is going to go. Whereas if you come down to commercial level, the implications cost-wise are not astronomical, but the ability to be able to monitor performance, but then look at that continual improvement and that cycle of continual improvement across your buildings is. And is
this have you just started in Ireland now, or has it been a long time in Ireland? Or
in terms of my conversations around in the sector, the commercial sector, nothing's been done in this space yet.
Really? Wow! I'm
It's exciting. It's genuinely exciting. Like the potential is massive. And look, before we let you go, Paul, you might just say, because I'm very conscious that this is a property show for property owners and managers and developers and construction companies, contractors, etc. I'm conscious that what you were talking about can sound intimidating, say for landlords who have buildings that might be 10 years plus, commercial buildings. So just kind of very briefly before we finish, can you let those business owners know where to start on the journey of IoT, and AI for owners and managers?
What we're looking at typically is around upgrading the building management system. So bolting onto that, but certainly it's around what are the pain points? What are you suffering? Where are you suffering most? Energy efficiency seems to be a big part of it, and that's around out of hours operations. So switching stuff off.
That's going to be the new trend.
Yeah, so we can manage that, and they can manage remote. It can be managed remotely. HVAC are big costs, and looking at the performance of the building against the metrics like occupancy.
Mm-hmm.
But certainly where the pain points are, starting where your spend is most, or we're trying to increase efficiencies. That's the starting point.
Okay, Paul, what's your website again, please?
It's www.acasm for mother.co.
Okay, that's great.
Paul.
Listen, Paul, thank you so much. That was Paul O'Connor, Business and Partner Development Director of ACASM. Thank you so much for being with us.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
You're telling Paul really well.
Your community radio for South Dublin. This is Dublin South FM.
That's the radio station on Property Matters, the programme with myself, Brian Fox, and Carol Tonland. You can contact us on Twitter at iPropertyRadio, or email hello@iPropertyRadio.com. And now in studio again is Ed Burke, who is founder of RooMigo, which is very topical, and very good to see you again, Ed. So it's become very topical now. With recent news stories and so forth as well, but maybe just go back and explain what your service is all about.
So, thanks very much for having me back. Great to be here again.
That's actually a good reminder for people that Ed was actually one of the very first guests on our pilot episode back in January. So thank you so much. And co-living has not been out of the news cycle since you were here with us last. So thank you so much for coming in again.
Yeah, I think co-living has really gone into the news much more over the last few weeks because some developments are planned for Ireland. So what RooMigo is really all about, and what co-living is all about, is actually creating communities of people. It's bringing together like-minded people. So on RooMigo you can find, if you're looking to share with like-minded people, young professionals who are, for example, vegans, you can find vegans easily. And it's really all about the community aspect of it. So for example, when I was living in Singapore, I moved to Singapore, and I didn't really know anybody. I was a young professional. I was in my 20s, and obviously I wanted to live with people, like-minded people. But because I didn't know anybody, what do you do? So back then, this was a few years ago. It was in 2013 when I moved to Singapore. There was no co-living spaces that I could go to, as in a co-living space of like-minded people, or there was no RooMigo. And living in a city can actually be it can be quite a lonely experience if you're a young person and you know nobody and you're living in an apartment on your own. So I wanted to live basically live with friends. So I spent a huge amount of time going around Singapore after work in the evenings, trying to find houses with people that could be my mates as well, rather than just other people in the flat, because that can improve your social life, because everything really starts in the home. So that's what gave me the idea initially to start RooMigo, because I thought if I want to live with, say, entrepreneurs or sporty people or people that like doing this type of stuff I like doing, I should be able to find that person in a few minutes.
Let me ask you, if what you're doing there is you're looking for your own sort of small community in terms of the city and in terms of living with someone from that community.
Yeah.
Okay. So, what's your typical profile? Would it be a sports person? Because a sports person has a natural community there in terms of sports club, in terms of going to the local bar. If you're living in Singapore,
it's to do with the types of people you want to share your home with. So a co-living community in a house could be a house share with 3 or 4 people or 5 people, or it could be a large residential development where they have 300 people or 400 or 500 people, like they do in some co-living spaces in London. So if I want to share my house with like-minded people, and I love watching, I like watching tennis a lot, and I want to watch the French Open, and that might annoy people in a house if they hate tennis. They don't want to be watching tennis all the time, or if I like watching football.
But they like sport,
So it could be like that, or it could be, it could be people that you want to play sport with. So if you like playing tag rugby, you might want to live with people that like playing tag rugby. Yeah. So it's not just about, it's about what you do in a home. If you're a night owl, you might want to live with night owls, or if you're 25 and you want to party all the time, a 35-year-old mightn't want to live with that person.
I think most young people particularly will have this experience because certainly in student accommodation, if you speak to any of the student accommodation officers in any of our universities, they'll always tell you that people go into shared space in the first couple of months, but generally speaking, after Christmas, that's when people have had their breaking point. So they've lived together from September to Christmas. They've had a break after over Christmas. Their parents will have, maybe talked them down off their ledge of, I'm not going back to share with that person, or he does this or she does this. So actually, January is the easiest time to find new accommodation in terms of people having left. So people seem to be able to live together incompatibly for up to 3 months, and that's the limit.
Well,
that's not good news for Ed.
But that's exactly why Ed's service is needed, because he wants people want to live with.
It's actually great news for me, because we're all about helping people find like-minded housemates. So it's all about creating those communities of like-minded people.
So tell me, okay, we've discussed.
You've lived in New York.
I have.
Did you share?
No.
Okay. Have you ever shared?
Years and years ago? Well, let me just put.
It's not pleasant.
Let me put another question to you then. Do co-livers have a contract then between each other, or is it just a very loose arrangement in relation to the property?
Okay, so just to go back to your original question, so the typical person living in co-living space is somebody in their 20s. So for example, in the Collective in London, the average age of someone in that space is 29, and on the RooMigo platform, I think something like 70% of our members are between the age of 23 and 33. So the vast majority are young professionals. It's not actually students. Some students use it as well, but it is really a young professional market. And in terms of the contract, so it totally depends on the arrangement. So it could be that you're moving into an apartment and your contract is with the landlord who is renting that apartment. With co-living spaces, there tends to be a few different types of models, but with that, usually what happens is you will pay a monthly rent, which includes your bills.
But it's a license. It's not actually called a rent.
It's actually a license. Yeah, that's a license.
So with different.
Tenancy rights. My train of thought is this: as Carol has just explained to you, what is it, 3 months and to get.
Yeah, that's how long people can incompatibly live together.
Okay, well, even if it stretches that bit further, and something happens, there's an accident or something like that, or the guy's or the girl's personality changes due to something. How can you relieve yourself of them, shall we say?
Well, it totally depends on who the landlord is. With some co-living operators, you sign a year-long lease. That's one particular model. With other co-living operators, you actually do a month-by-month lease. So with the month-by-month lease, which these types of co-living operators would typically target young professionals. A lot of the time they'd be expatriates moving to a new country. It could be someone coming to work in Ireland for 6 months, say, to work for Google or whatever, and you can do it a month-by-month arrangement. Again, it's to do with the particular co-living operator that you've moved in with. If it's in a house share situation, it's to do with the landlord. What actually happens a lot is one person will typically rent, say, a 3-bedroom apartment, and they will sublet the other 2 rooms, and usually the other tenants will go on to the lease, and landlords are largely happy with this if it just gets approved. And if somebody moves out, what you're doing is you're replacing in a typical house share situation, you get a replacement tenant, and RooMigo makes that process much easier because we can match up tenants. They're actually finding each other on the platform. Right. So you've got, say, 2 room seekers or 3, they're finding each other, they're forming groups, and then they can go to landlords and rent entire apartments. Okay.
Sorry, but before we finish up this, I just want to find out, because you were here back in January, there's been a lot of discussion about this. What has been reaction like to you in relation to this service to date?
Well, it's actually been incredible because we actually went on a French and German TV programme, ARTE. They made a documentary about the housing crisis in Dublin, of which RooMigo largely featured, and that is because we've been helping thousands of expats moving to Dublin find accommodation. So, for example, a French girl was moving to Ireland to work for Indeed, so she was a young professional. She moved over and she couldn't afford a house on her own because they're too expensive. Sure. So she actually used RooMigo to find other housemates So that therefore she had a group of people. The group formed up together in RooMigo. Then they went and they rented the house, and it's working out great. She was on the program talking about her experience.
It's a great way to share the deposit and get everybody's name on the lease, and fantastic.
So we've had situations of.
So it's been a positive experience for you then, really,
very positive.
Despite all discussion and so forth.
Well, we're bringing people together and enabling people to rent accommodation, because if the service isn't there, what are you going to do? You how are you going to find like-minded people? How are you going to rent that house you can't afford on your own?
Yeah. Brian mentions just a really important point. Since you've been here last, there has been a lot of commentary, and it has been broadly negative. And I'm always conscious in situations like this that it's broadly negative by people who have not used the service, but also don't today have the need for the service. So can you tell me why people would choose this?
Well, I think the negative commentary has been around large co-living developments that are planned for Ireland. Like the commentary about RooMigo has almost been universally positive. I mean, the feedback has been incredible.
Which is fantastic. Well done.
Well, thanks very
Absolutely.
much. So touching wood, that continues. I think it's. So I'm really pleased with it, and it's helping people match up. So,
but where is the disconnect coming in? So we've got people protesting about these co-living spaces coming in who will never live in them, and they genuinely don't see this as an appealing option. So can you tell me, who is it an appealing option for?
So the co-living, it's all to do with the creation of the community and the management of the co-living space. So just building the co-living residence is just one part of it. So it's all about the community. If you think you're moving into a space with like-minded young people, they're going to be your friends. That's actually the attraction to it. It's the community.
We'll have to be back in again.
I like that. So in future it won't be co-living, it'll be community living. I like it. Okay. Ed Burke, founder of RooMigo, thank you so much for joining us. And I know the co-living conversation is just getting started, so I'm sure we'll be discussing this again. Thank you so much for joining us. So for tonight, Property Matters, that's it from us, the Brian Fox and myself, Carol Tallon, and thank you to all of our guests, to Shane on sound and Katie who produced. Thank you so much, and we'll see you again next week.